between my duties and my responsibilities as a boxing manager and my duties and obligation as an attorney, I think that there's a tremendous, I look at it from the same perspective. I think there's a lot of overlap, first of all, right? So essentially, as an attorney, it's like very clear. You get hired by people and you represent them and you fight for their rights. You fight for their freedom if it's a criminal case. You fight to get them a settlement if it's an injury case. In boxing, as a manager, you're really doing the same thing. You're representing your fighter, and you're representing your fighter to the promoter, right? You're representing them to the networks when you get to that level. So it really, to me, was always the same thing. So I didn't feel like I was going into a completely new, while it may have been a new industry, I wasn't going into something that I wasn't already doing to some extent.
So your skills kind of transferred between different industries.
Yeah,
Totally.
Like when Ant was saying, I was like, do something like your instincts, your boxing instincts. Do you use that in the courtroom? Because you got to think of it. It is a battle. It is combativeness. Like you're going back and forth with somebody.
In both arenas, the ring and the court, things happen really, really, really quick. And you got to be on your toes, and you got to be thinking. One thing, people think, there's a fighter. Look at this guy. Look at Evander Holyfield. He's big. He's strong. Look at him. He's just gonna knock somebody out. Or look at Mike Tyson. Any of them, even Jerry Cooney, big guy, tall guy. It's a thinking man's win. Boxing is a thinking man's game. You know how many? Most fights get won in the gym.
That's a fact.
End of story. Good chemistry between a trainer, a manager, mostly the trainer and the fighter.
Yeah.
A manager that if there's input, I would have input into a fight plan. I would only do that when I was asked. And I would only do it when the fighter and the trainer were both on the same page with me doing that. It happens really quick. It's preparation, and you got to be really quick on your feet with your mind because things change quickly in trials and in the boxing ring. So, and you got to prepare. People are like, oh my, I just had a hearing. I've only been in court a handful of times since 2020 because of COVID.
Yeah.
I made my money in court. My office used to run where I had a staff, and I didn't even drive to my office. I would drive to court. Like, I just was in court. I was a court lawyer.
So when did you get the information?
Well, I finally went back to court a couple times, and it was a really interesting thing. The prosecutor was excited to be there. The judge was excited to have us there. Sometimes the judges aren't so excited to have lawyers like me in there that really press and push and win. I mean, it's hard.
So I get you. Like, you speaking on it is like you say it's like you going against certain prosecutors or everything. It's like, okay, yeah, I know what I got to bring my A game today.
Period. And in my cases, I bring it every day because I get top prosecutors. I handle a lot of homicides,
ladies and gentlemen,
carjacking, robbery, a lot of different stuff, heavy stuff.
So it's the same thing. You get like a scouting report, like, okay, who's on this case?
100%.
Who am I going against today?
Right.
Listen, we size each other up. We know what our strengths and weaknesses are, and it happens. I win in the office. I perform in court.
Yeah.
I win in the office. And there's a lot of, your question is great.
Yeah.
When you, as much as you prepare for a fight, right? And I prepare for a trial, there's still the wild cards. There's still, when the witness says something that's not in the documents, it's nowhere. It's not in the police reports. It's not in the statements. It's not in the grand jury. It's nowhere. And with you get in that ring, and a punch comes out of nowhere that you never saw on tape, that the prior opponents that he fought never told you about. You know the scout job. You know what you're doing. You go on BoxRec and you look up who he fought, all of it.
Right.
How long did the fight go? Did he get stopped? Did he not get stopped? Did it go to distance? Was it split? Was it a majority? What was it, right? You prepare. And then all of a sudden it comes from a different angle.
Got to readjust.
Right.
And that happens about 30 seconds into the round. You're dying to get in your trainer's head, but that ain't happening for another 2.5, right?
Exactly.
So it happens in trial too.
You gotta adjust. Right?
You got to adjust, and you prepare for as much as you can. That's why the preparation is so important. The wild card could still beat you.
That makes sense.
Both arenas.
Yeah, that's true. You can use that in the fact there's Uno too. The wild card come out of nowhere.
Comes out of nowhere.
But yeah,
How did it happen?
Even I mean, I'm a DJ, so like even in a party setting, I could walk in with a plan or whatever the case may be. But it's more so like the practice and the hours I put in, on top of like being quick on my feet. That kind of keeps me on my toes and keeps me ready as far as like what I need to do for a crowd and shit. So that's very interesting.
I would
never really
assume
looked
you
at it
got to
like
read a
that.
room.
Yeah.
I'd like to say I'm okay at it.
That's your wild card, right?
Like honestly
That's
speaking,
the wild card for a DJ.
In the room.
and reading the room, and I could look at it like the wild card, like the podcast, like you coming on. Like when Ant brought it to us of like, you coming on, we thinking like, damn, like we really was battling, going through like topics on like how to like still get you to still feel comfortable and like still appeal to our audience, and coming up with like that Venn diagram of like that common point of like, okay, yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's true. That's that wild card.
The law, fellas.
Hello, fellas.
Listen, Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Comfort level was never going to be a problem.
So yeah, so I definitely see that. Like you said, you never know what you could have your client, and your client said something that they never told you before. Say they fold under pressure and bring something up that, or they remember something when somebody else says something, and now you have to bring this back all together and make it whole in order to win the case.
Yeah. You got to go on, I call it recognizance. Recognizance and repair. The examples, I couldn't even begin to tell you.